here today. I know that Representative Canessa could not be here today, but we do have all of our delegation here. I want to call on them for some remarks, but I want to start with the Senator, Mark Montigny, who, when he envisions New Bedford, envisions projects like this all day long and wants to know how he can help facilitate them. So I'd like to call to the podium, please, Senator Mark Montigny.
Thank you. First, I want to say to Richard LaFrance, how the change comes with the younger generations. I knew your mom and dad, and they wouldn't have had a long-term commitment to a mortgage. They would have paid cash for this project. On an even lighter note, the folks from the Waterfront Historic League, when they literally and physically stood in front of the wrecking ball when they tried to destroy this absolutely fabulous city, and they actually did a pretty good job tearing down a lot of it, but there was so much good here that a lot of it remained. And they used to say something the equivalent of New Bedford, not just any place. So I was thinking today how much of a celebration this is for some of us who are at this every day, and that would be most of you and certainly everyone behind me. But I also felt a sense of empathy. Can you imagine the people in our positions and your positions in places like Plymouth, where they had to go out and get a rock 100 years after the Pilgrims arrived and market that? Can you imagine places like Nantucket, where they had to walk the streets of our beautiful whaling port and recreate it in replica form? It's got to be tough. I mean, we're actually lucky to have the natural. That's all off the record, of course. It's got to be tough to have the natural, or not to have the kind of natural resources that we have. But I want to think back and say one thing about a partnership between the private and the public sector. And it starts with Richard LaFrance, and it starts with the legacy that his parents left him and his family and his workers. But it's essential that it be a partnership. And I think in this business, particularly when we as elected officials stand at the podium, we stress that a lot. And frequently, when I listen to folks talking about partnership, and I look at who they are and what they're saying, I smile, because I think how some of those folks have such a difficult time partnering. This city wouldn't be the beautiful city that it is, and it wouldn't be the great city that it was and that it's fast becoming if it wasn't for a truly public and private partnership. And I'll use this one project as an example of what I mean. For decades, we didn't build a hotel, and it wasn't because no one wanted to, and it wasn't because there wasn't vision, and it wasn't because there wasn't tremendous effort. We didn't have Richard LaFrance, but we also didn't have quite the partnership that we have here. And I say it because I think we have to do, as Barney Frank mentions many times, we have to justify to the taxpayer what we mean when we say we're going to earmark their money or spend their resources to generate investment. The downtown was dead 12 years ago. This legislative delegation said, not simply we're going to build the Star Store because we want to give space to the university, but we are going to rebuild the city in its past form as an arts and cultural institution. It has happened. The same delegation with the mayor and Barney Frank worked to bring in millions of dollars to seed every one of those arts and cultural institutions, and they're there. The museums are everywhere. The galleries are moving in. There's at least 15 really good restaurants that any of you who are from out of town ought to stop at least one on the way back, and they're thriving and they're investing. But it didn't happen without millions of dollars in investment that this legislative delegation brought home for all of downtown, for the Route 18 project, and now for the port and the waterfront. It works when government says we will seed the project, and then the private sector comes in and says we'll finish now, and we'll spend the bulk of the funds, and we'll return it back in a tremendous investment. That has happened. So I thank you, Richard, but I also thank you in the audience and my colleagues behind me that spent years and millions of dollars to lay the groundwork to now break the ground on this project, and it wouldn't be possible without that government investment. Thank you.
Our southeastern Massachusetts, many partners and private citizens. We want to thank everyone for coming here for a very important project, which is the first hotel that will be built in New Bedford in over 40 years, and it's brought to us by LaFrance Hospitality, and we're here to celebrate their confidence in our state and in our city. The first thing that I'd like to do is introduce our Lieutenant Governor, who is on a tight schedule, and we're going to ask him to please speak, and then we know he has to get moving. He may hit the shrimp counter before he leaves, so if everyone can make a quick path for him. But I know the Lieutenant Governor has been here over the past week, touring the area, from the standpoint of the way we enjoy it, having a little bit of downtime, but also, more importantly, meeting with many, many important partners, not only in the local government, but also in nonprofits, as well as today did something for the Seaport Council out at Cuttyhunk, which was a terrific event for the individuals that use that port. We also can tell you that the Lieutenant Governor was just here not a week ago talking about the train and the need for our region to be linked by rail to the rest of the state. So we appreciate him and all the effort that he does along with our Governor, Governor Patrick, and I can tell you that we have never had a finer partner in this area over the last 4 decades in this particular administration. Day in, day out, they're involved. Our legislative delegation can tell you that. Our Congressman Frank can tell you that in the interest of the city. So I'd like to introduce Lieutenant Governor Tim Murray.
Thank you, Mayor Lang. I apologize for not being in a suit, but I was climbing in and out of the Ernestina a little while ago, and we took Cuttyhunk, went over to Cuttyhunk to officially do the ribbon cutting for a new pier and fuel dock, which is important. And so we had a chance to come back over to New Bedford and be with all of you to say thank you to Richard LaFrance, to his group for their confidence and investment in New Bedford and in the state. It is so important that we take local level and state government and the federal level to thank those entrepreneurs and business people, especially in this economic time, who are willing to go against the grain and make a commitment. And that's what's happening here today. I do think we all are working hard, whether it be in the private sector or the public sector, to manage our way through this difficult economic time. And I know the mayor and the city council are doing that here in New Bedford. We're working hard with our colleagues in the legislature, the State House, to do that as well. And people in the private sector each and every week are doing it in terms of meeting commitments and payroll. But this is a good sign, and there are some shoots coming out of the ground. I think because of strategic investments in infrastructure, the Federal Recovery Act, which Congressman Frank has been so important in advocating for. But Mayor Lang hit the word confidence. And what we in the public sector can do, whether it be at the federal, state, or local level, is try to create an environment that is welcoming, that invests in infrastructure, whether it be the $12.3 million that the state is putting into the Port of New Bedford in the last couple of years, working with our partners in the legislature, Governor Patrick and I, whether it be working on trying to, with issues with Route 18, so we can do everything we can to connect the beautiful waterfront and the working waterfront that is here in New Bedford with the history and beautiful architecture in and around this neighborhood. And that's what we're trying to do. It's what I oftentimes call the blocking and tackling of government, trying to make things work, but it does make a difference when people like Richard make decisions on where they're going to invest, and they've got all types of people knocking on their door. But this is great things about the work that's taking place here in New Bedford and the South Coast, and congratulations to everybody. As I said, it's at all levels of government, and we are very lucky in Massachusetts to have a tenacious advocate, a very articulate advocate as to why public investment is important in infrastructure, whether it be the port or rail or housing, and the list goes on. And you know that better than I, because he's been your congressman, now he's my congressman as well as Lieutenant Governor. Let's have a great welcome for Congressman Barney Frank.